The Foundation Festival arc is the current major arc in the Frieren manga right now. Although the manga is on hiatus, I figured its current stopping point made now the perfect time to briefly cover everything important that happened in the arc so far. Of course, there will be spoilers from the manga too. Some may say the Foundation Festival arc begins in chapter 126, but I think chapters 124 and 125 work as a good prelude to the arc, as it's our first introduction to Shadow Warriors, which play a major role in the arc. Frieren's party are traveling in Imperial territory by this point in the story, and stop by a village to get some rest, to regain their energy before continuing their journey. The group are taken to the village mayor, Radal, who at first glance appears to be a very kind, caring elderly man, who the entire village respects. Frieren does seem to notice something when she shakes his hand, and as they spend the rest of the day sharing stories with the villagers, Frieren continues to keep a close eye on Radal. Her suspicions are proven to be correct, as it's revealed that Radal was part of a group of Shadow Warriors from the Empire, and was tasked with killing everyone on a hit list they were given. They were supposed to lay low in a village on the mountain path, while they waited for their targets, and were ordered to continue with their mission until told otherwise. As it turns out, Frieren was on that hit list, and the last person left to kill. Radal is the last living member of his group, and chooses to fulfill his duty by going to Frieren's inn at night. Stark tries to stop him, but is easily taken down, but spared because his name is not in the list. Even though Fern and Frieren are prepared for Radal's arrival, he still manages to blitz Frieren, and pin her into the ground with a knife to her neck. Bro took her down effortlessly, and even Frieren admits he could slit her throat in an instant. When Radal reveals he's a Shadow Warrior, Frieren mentions she didn't think they existed. From what she knew, they were a secret order of warriors who specialized in concealing their mana. They were formed during the time of the Unified Empire, specifically to counter mages. Dark then barges in, getting Radal to get away from Frieren, and revealing that he no longer has any idea why he's actually after Frieren. His group have pretended to be a family in the village as they kill their targets. Yet as time went on, that became reality as they settled down, had children, and grew old. Now there's no one left who remembers the mission, and Radal finally realized that he can move on. From there we cut to Ubel and Land for the first time in forever. Ubel had come to grab Land as the Continental Mage Association had paired them up for a certain mission. Then in the Imperial capital, Iceberg, we see that Frieren's party is now in a room with both Zenza and Falsch. This is where the mission carried out by the 5 first-class mages is revealed. Right now, Iceberg is in the midst of the National Foundation Festival. As a representative of the Continental Mage Association, Zeria was invited to attend a large ball on the final day, where the leading figures from the Imperial territories and the Northern Lands will gather. However, the first-class mage, Liniel, who had been undercover in the Empire, informed Falsch that there's a chance Zeria will be assassinated at the ball. That's why 5 first-class mages are brought in for the large-scale mission of being bodyguards for Zeria. While Frieren even admits that she herself can't imagine being in Zeria at all, she thinks a skilled warrior could have a chance. She points out that someone like Stark could kill Fern and herself with a surprise attack at close range. That's why it's crucial to have a warrior in the party as the first line of defense, even for someone like Zeria. Falsch and Zenza are capable of hand-to-hand fighting, which is why they'll be Zeria's personal bodyguards. That is a solid strategy for most warriors, but Frieren doesn't know what would happen if they ran into someone like Radal, who almost killed them before they got here. Interestingly enough, Zenza knows that they're talking about a Shadow Warrior. After a brief look at the possible suspect plan to assassinate Zeria, we go back to Ubel and Land, who are in the Empire now, and get into a carriage together. Their current mission is to blend into a party, hosted by a chief retainer of the Empire, and retrieve a letter about the assassination plot that Liniel hid for them in a storage room. Due to her position in the Empire, Liniel can't move around freely during the Foundation Festival, which is why she has to send information indirectly. Ubel had actually met Liniel before in the Northern Branch, but got the impression Liniel was strange, since the woman spent all day just looking at butterflies after delivering her report. Once at the manor, Ubel and Land make their way to the storage room where Liniel hid the letter. However, they're nearly caught by 2 members of the Magic Special Forces, Kanon and Yu. Once Kanon realizes they've been tricked, they re-enter the room, but the mage duo already escaped through the window. As they escape into an empty neighborhood, Land states that they've already been cornered, and explains why he fears the Magic Special Forces so much. First-class mages are just mages, while the MSF have many mages that specialize in overall warfare, putting them at an advantage. The MSF basically excel at hunting mages, almost like they're the prey. Land is then suddenly crushed by an attack from New, leaving Ubel all alone. Ubel puts up a good fight, even managing to freeze New with their binding spell. However, it's over once New figures out how the spell works and uses a mysterious technique to blind Ubel. Land then comes out of hiding so New doesn't kill her before they're both taken into custody. Later on, Falsch lets Zenza know that Ubel and Land were probably taken into custody by the MSF. The MSF resents Zenza so it would be a bad idea for her to bail out the duo herself. Meanwhile, Frieren's party is out on patrol in the city and she feels like someone has been watching them. As they walk through the city, Frieren talks about the Empire has prospered thanks to Flemma, and how now magic is everywhere in this land. Even people who aren't mages can use it. This country is the closest thing to what Flemma dreamed of. Yet perhaps this Empire magic civilization is also what becomes Syria's greatest enemy. Frieren has seen so many things change throughout her lifetime, and could even laugh some of it off. Yet this time it's not very funny. Frieren feels like Zarya isn't acting like herself, and wonders if there's something that's making her cautious, but then states she might just be overthinking it, as maybe Zarya just wants to see the evolution of magic through her students. Meanwhile, we get introduced to a number of shadow warriors that are undercover in the city. Lo, the Governor General of the Lobera domain, is the one who's planning to assassinate Zarya, and gives the mission to the other shadow warriors. There's Shrit, the drunk mercenary, and she passes the info to Wolf, the barkeep. He then passed it to Iris, who's a poster girl for the bar, and she gives it to Routine, a librarian. From there it goes to Clementis, a priest, then to a nun named Lore, then Rurlos, and finally Gazelle. He's a street vendor, and Frieren happens to be nearby as she tells Fern her plan to make the enemies let down their guard by shopping. From there we seem to cut to the next morning with Kanon interrogating and Gluck. She's trying to get him to just say Mach deceived him. He'd be sentenced to death if he was caught working with the demon. However, Gluck wants the death sentence and suspects he's been caught up in a political struggle and a plot orchestrated by the head of the Magic Special Forces, Phrase. She was so powerful that even Mach suggested they kill her back in the day. Gluck regrets not allowing him to. Ultimately, Gluck is just sent back to Waste, where he's to await his judgment. A lenient sentence according to Denkin, and he'll be going with him to Waste too. More importantly though, Frieren wakes up early and is rightfully celebrated for doing so, although Stark sees that as a bad sign for tomorrow. From there we get back to Ubel and Land, who are escorted to a cell by Kanon. Once they're left alone, Land has Ubel slice the rope around his hands due to her spell to cut through anything Ubel thinks she can cut. When Kanon and Yu return, they quickly realize Land switched himself out with a clone. When Yu leaves the room to search, Land and Ubel corner Kanon, but she explains their approach was wrong, as now she's forced to kill them. To avoid an all-out battle, Ubel slices the tower, allowing Kanon to prioritize protecting the civilians below, to avoid being charged with dereliction of duty for letting the duo go. Then we cut back to Frieren walking through the street and finding Gazelle. After some bartering, she buys an antique from him with some coins that have some of her mana. Back at the base, Falsh quickly deduces that the item was a fake. Meanwhile, Zenza meets up with Denkin and learns that he has no idea about the plot to assassinate Zarya. Since he's a first-class mage now, the Empire can no longer share with him any nefarious plans they might have. Then when Zenza returns to their base, Frieren is in a rare state of sulking that only happens every 10 years because of the fake item she got. Fortunately, it only lasts for a few minutes before Frieren goes with their party to investigate something. Meanwhile, all the Shadow Warriors meet up to discuss their mission to distract Zarya's bodyguards, while Lo does the assassination. Gazelle's main concern is if Lo is actually capable of slaying someone like Zarya. However, his doubts are gone once he realizes Lo is probably the warrior who killed the great mage Minos. 20 years ago, Minos the Witch brought endless war to the southern lands and was accused of high treason, and ultimately defeated by a nameless warrior. Even if it wasn't Lo, one of the great mages did die, and at least Lo can visualize Zarya's death. After their meeting, we see Falsh spying on Routine and Iris as they walk through an escape route. At the same time, Gazelle purchases a drink at Wolf's bar, using the coins Frieren gave him. Those silver coins had a trace spell on them, and Frieren also points out how Gazelle was a warrior. She also finds it suspicious that Razin, the hero of the north, was with Gazelle too, under a different name. Now he goes by Rurlos. Later on that day, Lore visits the bar, where after some back and forth yapping between Wolf and Gazelle, she notices the silver coins Gazelle had given Wolf. She immediately senses the mana in them, and recognizes it's the trace and spell. Silver acts as a catalyst that covers up mana, which is why none of the others noticed, and Lore tells Wolf and Gazelle to prepare for battle. At the same time, Rurlos' cat is dying, and can't be saved by Clementis. However, a familiar face passes by. It's none other than Sign, who finally makes his return in the series. He helps save the cat, and tells the dwarf about Gorilla Warrior. Rurlos has an idea who it is, but it doesn't say, and instead leads him to the bar. Meanwhile, Frieren realizes that they've traced the spell back to her, but before they can move, Stark is shot by an arrow meant for Frieren. When they take cover, Frieren tells Fern it's too dangerous to fire back in the middle of the city, and they try to run away instead, with Frieren also flaring her mana up. This gets Sign's attention by causing him to have to stop following Rurlos. As Frieren's party tries to escape, Stark falls over because he's been poisoned. They manage to make it to an abandoned building, but can't take Stark anywhere else, due to the enemy using the magic of the goddess to track them. Fern suggests they get the antidote from the shooter, but Frieren knows Fern will lose control if she has suggested that. Of course, Frieren doesn't care, and Frieren has to get serious with her, as she doesn't want Frieren to go crazy in the city and start a war. Thankfully though, Sign arrives just in time, and quickly begins to work on healing Stark. After Stark is stabilized, they discuss their current situation. If the Sign reverse tracks Lor's location, Gazelle bursts through the door, behind Frieren, but his attack is blocked by Stark, who is active again somehow. Frieren attempts to blast Gazelle away before Stark blocks an arrow from Wolf. Stark then falls over after that, having used the rest of his energy to protect Frieren. Now that they have Lor's location though, Frieren is certain Frieren can strike from this distance. Since Frieren launching in the air will make her an easy target for Wolf, she waits till the fireworks go off before flying up. Covered by the fireworks, Wolf can get a good shot. Luckily for them, Lor was already on the run, but she doesn't have enough stamina to go far, and instead does her best to locate Frieren instead. She plans to steal Frieren's magic, which would make her fall to her death, but when she tries to launch her spell, Frieren notices and is able to cast her spell faster. Lor is left unconscious after the direct hit, and both groups flee the scene. Once they're back at the base, Frieren lets Zenza know that she will help out with the mission now, and that there is no way Zarya will die. With the knowledge of Minus' death, humanity is starting to realize elves aren't truly immortal. Zenza believes that Zarya must be starting to understand that even if you could live for thousands of years, that doesn't mean you can't die tomorrow. As for Sign, he catches up with the party before Lan and Ubel finally return from their mission. Zarya also arrives at the Empire. She remembers a young Flemma, acknowledging she built the largest magic using civilization. Although Zarya never thought she'd be visiting like this. As soon as Zarya steps through the gate, Falsh appears behind her. Zarya doesn't think she needs a bodyguard, so Falsh suggests he be her guide instead, and forms a cloak on Zarya. As they walk through the city, Zarya is disappointed by the statue of Flem not being that accurate. It seems Zarya is the only one in the world who remembers the smile of a young Flemma who longed for something out of a fairy tale. Back at the base, the group of bodyguards discuss the Shadow Warriors they're facing. Zenza points out that the Shadow Warriors may not be aligned with the Empire, since they were disbanded 16 years ago by order of the previous Emperor. It's because their chain of command was unclear. Commanders were given significant authority and could essentially do whatever they wanted without orders from above. The problem was that they were chosen from those who pledged loyalty to the Empire. Once the Empire's purpose became less clear, the Shadow Warriors gradually stopped serving the Empire's will. Ubel wouldn't be surprised if the Shadow Warriors began to think they could save the Empire from moving in the wrong direction. Almost like they became traitors, like Kanon points out after she learns of the involvement of the Shadow Warriors. This confirms the credibility of the assassination plot, and the MSF have no choice but to increase security now. Whether it's the Mage Association or the Shadow Warriors, the MSF's mission is to maintain the peace of the Imperial City during the Foundation Festival. Elsewhere, Falsh provides the group with information from Lineal on the Shadow Warriors in the city. Zenza also reveals that Lineal was even able to make Zarya kneel during a mock battle, so she should be able to take care of herself. More interestingly, Sign recognizes one of the Shadow Warriors, probably reminded him of Guerrilla Warrior. He had immediately gone searching for him, and we cut to Welrose talking with that man. His name is Christ, and he even confirms he's Guerrilla Warrior by saying he was glad he retired that name. As for Lor, she's hiding in a blanket with Iris and Routine in the room with her. This is the first time she's been damaged like this after all. Meanwhile, Clementis is in the other room talking with Lo about how many of the Shadow Warriors they'll have to sacrifice. Clementis suggests Lo take the lead directly as Shadow Warrior Commander, and asks what his goal is. So Lo reveals that their goal is to extinguish magic from this world. Outside in the city, unable to find Guerrilla Warrior, Sign sits with Frieren and asks to join them as Zarya's bodyguards. Frieren makes it clear that her priority is to protect Frieren and Stark, and will kill her opponents if necessary. That said, Frieren will do her best to bring the best possible outcome. As for Frieren, while she does think it's smart to just drop this risky mission, this land is also her master's legacy, which is why she also wants to reach a good outcome. On the other hand, she knows Zarya came here to fight, and a crock of mana lets Frieren know that Zarya is doing something at this very moment. As the party starts walking, Frieren states that there are two people they need to watch out for. One is the Shadow Warrior Commander, and the other has been watching them this whole time. It turns out Zarya's mana detection was the cause of the mana crackle, and it allowed her to scan the entire capital. Thanks to Zarya's scan, Frieren was able to notice the thin mana detection layer surrounding the capital. It likely belongs to Fraze, who is having a meeting with Kanon. They discuss the MSF's mission to maintain public order during the festival, but Fraze also makes it clear that unforeseen events can happen, and that murders are against the law of the land, except for those wielding force on behalf of the Empire. Fraze hopes Kanon makes the right choices, as all of this is for the prosperity of magic in the Empire. Finally though, Zarya has arrived at the mage's base, and they discuss who will be entering the ball with her. Everyone besides Lana and Ubel will enter the ball, since those two are marked as fugitives now. Lana actually questions why Zarya paired him up with Ubel, and Zarya suggests that this was the only way she knew Lan would accept the mission, due to his past in the Imperial capital. Unfortunately though, learning to handle Ubel's reins is another issue entirely, assuming those things even exist. But with the time of the ball drawing near, our bodyguards began to get dressed appropriately for the event. With Frieren getting ready, Zarya mocks Frieren for being unable to do her own hair, even though she's in the same boat. Zarya even offers to do Frieren's hair, but is denied. Hearing that, Zarya says if Frieren wants, she can leave the mission, as she doubts the assassination plot will amount to anything anyways. She asks if Frieren can visualize her death, but is countered by Frieren asking what future does she visualize. Frieren questions what her own duty is here. Hearing that, Zarya again tells Frieren it's okay for her to leave, as Zenza recruited them on her own. However, Frieren points out that it's because Frieren respects Zarya so much that Frieren was brought into this mission. Hearing that, Zarya pauses before offering to do Frieren's hair. Even though Zarya strangely has more to say, Frieren goes to have Frieren do her hair instead. Zarya then decides to do Zenza's hair instead, and recalls her basis for selecting her bodyguards. The ones participating in this operation are those who wish for privileges, far from what Zarya desired. Lan requested to locate his family remains. Ubel wished for a spell to find her sister, and we know Frieren got a spell to simplify laundry. Some mages wish for strength, like Zarya desired, while others did not. The latter are those who Zarya believes will surpass their expectations. We see Falsh requested a spell to freely change his voice, to be able to even mimic Zarya, while Zenza desired a spell that would allow her to sleep soundly after killing someone. It seems Zarya wishes to see an outcome that surpasses their expectations, and believes an unexpected future is something that can be attained by her bodyguards. Zarya doesn't elaborate further, as she knows Zenza would disagree. So would the rest of her bodyguards, which is why she brought them. With that said, we cut to the beginning of the ball, with the arrival of Zarya along with the rest of her bodyguards. And that is the Foundation Festival arc so far. At this point in time, the Frieren manga went on hiatus, but I'm glad we got to the start of the ball at least. Everything before was amazing setup, so after the break, the manga will jump right into the main event. So this was the perfect place to stop in my opinion. The climax of this arc feels like it might actually be the peak of Frieren, if the payoff is done well. I also think whatever happens will play a major impact on the story going forward. What do y'all think of this arc so far though? Will Zarya actually die? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe. I got some more Frieren content here too that you can check out. Peace.